My name is Dan Dorsch, and I suffer from COVID fatigue. And I suspect that there is not a single person in this room or a single person watching from home who is also not at this very moment also suffering from COVID fatigue. You all know those moments we passed by our favorite restaurant, we want to rip off our mask and just run in and pick up a hamburger. That's COVID fatigue. We have vacation plans. We want to travel to the most exotic destinations in the world. Maybe we'll settle for visiting our family, but we can't go. That's COVID fatigue. We pass by the gym and we say to ourselves, wouldn't it just be great if we could go in and get a workout? And so we order a Peloton or a treadmill, which would become a great location for me to hang my dry cleaning. Only I don't have any dry cleaning because we're all suffering from COVID fatigue. We are, all of us, in the words of the American Jewish poet Emma Lazarus, the masses of the tired and the poor yearning to breathe free in this time of pandemic. That's COVID fatigue. The Jews in Sefer Shemot this morning no doubt understood in their own way what COVID fatigue was, because they had to deal with something that was remarkably similar. No, not the 10 plagues in Egypt, although something tells me that this Pesach we are going to make room on our Seder plates for the 11th plague, coronavirus. I'm talking about slavery fatigue. After 400 years of slavery in Egypt to Pharaoh, the Israelites' senses had been dulled. They didn't know, they didn't understand anything else. We in this room at least remember real life. But for the generations of the Jews in slavery, that was the only life that they lived, slavery. And so it is it any wonder to us in this room and at home that when God speaks to the children of Israel, Va'era, that it doesn't make a dent? Va'era, God says to the Jewish people, I will show you signs and wonders. I will beat back Pharaoh. I will carry you from slavery to freedom. Only what does our parasha say? It says, Velo shamu el Moshe, that they did not listen to Moses, mikotzer ruach ume avodah kasha. Avodah kasha, we all know, means hard work. That makes sense. They were tired. Only what is kotzer ruach? As I mentioned earlier, in two other places in the Tanakh, it's translated as meaning the word impatience. Only here I think it's best if we translate it literally. Kotzer, katzar in Hebrew means to reap or to cut something short. And ruach is your spirit. Kotzer ruach means that the Israelites felt like their spirits had been cut short. That no matter how much they hoped and prayed, they were constantly disappointed. Their faith was shattered. That's COVID fatigue. How? Rabbi Ovadia Sforno teaches us that kotzer ruach is what happens when there is a disconnect between our heads and our hearts. In Parashat Va'era, the Israelites wanted to believe what God was telling them, that their suffering would soon be over, that the end to this unnecessary burden in their lives would be near. But mikotzer ruach, from slavery fatigue, their hearts could not believe what their heads were telling them. That's COVID fatigue. Friends, we are no different than the Israelites. Our heads want to believe everything that we are hearing, but for nearly a year now, our hearts have been ripped out and our souls have been cut short. We've lost our faith in God, and yes, we've watched society ignore lockdowns, and we've lost faith in our fellow human beings too. That's COVID fatigue. And yet here we are. Shabbat Va'era, this Shabbat symbolizes the beginning of the end of the Israelite suffering. We see the 10 plagues that will eventually lead to the exodus of the Jewish people from slavery to freedom, causing us to wonder this Shabbos, what got the Israelites back on track? And what is it that's going to get us back on track in our time of COVID fatigue? I want to answer that question this Shabbat with a story that our rabbis tell about a woman who went to the Tzaddik of Zanz, the great Hasidic Rebbe, to complain about God. The woman came to the Tzaddik and complained, "Tzaddik, my life is too hard. I can't keep faith anymore." And so the Tzaddik of Zanz told her, "Well, you know, woman, just have faith in God and God will take care of you." Only the woman pushed back. She didn't agree with the Tzaddik. She said, "With all due respect, Rabbi, the Torah in Parashat Va'era says it's the other way. In the Torah, God saves the Jews of Egypt, but it was only when God saved the Jewish people of Egypt that they saw the miracles and the signs and the wonders. That's when they had faith in God." The tzaddik smiled at the woman and said, "You are right. You are right. First, God will help you, and then your faith will grow." In our time of COVID, how are we in this room, how are we at home going to find relief from COVID fatigue? How are we going to find faith again when our faith in others and in God is diminished? Like the woman in our story, the answer is clear. We will look to God and humanity for help. We will see the miraculous, and then our faith will grow. This week we began the Hebrew month of Shvat, marking Tu B'Shvat, the month when in Jerusalem, and maybe if it wasn't so cold in Atlanta, the month when everything again will come into bloom. And so we can see, even in our time of COVID fatigue, that there is blooming in the world that is already coming to pass. Over the past couple of weeks, we can now take faith in miracles, have faith that help is on the way, and we can use that to carry ourselves out of our COVID fatigue, our Kotzer Ruach. First, I saw, like many of you, the photos on social media of professionals, medical professionals, getting their vaccines. As I've said, I had no idea I knew so many medical professionals until I saw those photos. Now this week it was time to see our synagogue friends 65 and over getting their vaccinations. In New York City, the teachers are already getting their vaccinations. It's not been a perfect rollout, but there is hope in that moment in those pictures. My faith also grows in our shul and congregation Eitz Chaim, as I have watched the generous spirit of so many at work over the past number of months. You would all be shocked to find out how many countless families have come forward and said, "Rabbi, how can I help? How can I restore your community's faith in humanity, our community's faith? Rabbi, I'd like to make an anonymous donation. Please take this money and use it to help a family who's fallen on hard times." It's like they're saying, "Rabbi, how can we help to restore the faith of those who are feeling Kotzer Ruach, spiritually depleted, like their souls have been cut short?" In Egypt, we see at Parashat Va'era that the Israelites thought that God's talk was cheap. But it was the Exodus that inspired the Israelites to reconnect to God. It's going to be the same thing with us. What's going to take us out of this COVID fatigue? It's not going to be the TV commercials. It's not going to be my treadmill sitting lonely in the corner. In the coming weeks and months, our faith will return when we see that God's love has not been withheld from the world and it has not been withheld from us. As I said this morning, my name is Dan Dorsch, and I have COVID fatigue. Like you, I have been left the past 10 or so months feeling spiritually cut off. And like you, I am also looking for answers. But mine is the faith that I shall see Adonai's help and love in the land of the living. And I know that soon my faith will be restored. Kaveh el Adonai. For we in our society are on the cusp of a miracle that is no greater than what the Israelites saw in Egypt as they were taken from slavery to freedom, poor souls who were then able to breathe free. Soon, we're going to have to get back on airplanes. Soon, we will soon have kiddushes. There will be an end, Parashat Va'era reminds us, to COVID fatigue. Amen.